for in-home, in-person meetings. First thing I would suggest is as you start your in-home or again presentation or whatever you want to call it, make sure that you're setting really clear expectations. Who you are, how the appointment's going to go, what you need from them. Sales process is getting people to put their guard down. Certainly there's an aspect to like and trust you. You got to really set the expectations in the home, and I start with that on the phone. Certainly it's going to take X amount of time and what I need typically, whether it's have your medications and your ID ready. I'll come out there and it'll take about 15 minutes to figure out if you're eligible for anything or not. So I start setting those expectations on the phone. But in the house, here's who I am. Here's what we're gonna do today. Basically, I'm gonna ask you some questions so I can find out what you're eligible for. Certainly we'll get to a point where we'll go through some pricing options for you. If you're eligible for anything, you can go down a list of, and again, everybody's situation is different. Every product you're selling is different. There's plenty of opportunity to see those specifics, but I think setting expectations is insanely helpful, because I learned when I didn't set those expectations, they weren't really listening as attentively. They were there was anxiety because they didn't know what was happening. They didn't know when I was going to get to pricing. I remember clients wondering why I was asking about their mortgage. They didn't understand it. But for me, it was taking a financial inventory and understanding their situation before I could present. Because for me, I'm trying to solve a problem with insurance. If you're out there selling $100,000 for $80 a month, that's basically a commodity at that point. If I understood their financial and their family dynamic and their whole situation, now this $100,000 solves a problem, it's a very, very different situation. I'd say make sure you're really clear at setting expectations. And again, you can see that in the world anywhere. If you go to the dentist, they don't just start drilling your face when you sit in a chair. Hey, we're going to take some x-rays, we're going to go through this process, I'm going to stick this little thing in your mouth, and they go through the steps before they again start drilling your face. So that made the appointments a lot easier for me. It's be aware, pay attention. I can remember walking into houses a lot, and I roll up and maybe a woman's answering the door, and I go to shake her hand, and she opens the door and she looks at me sideways, she has no idea who I am. And I can remember early just trying to go in my normal appointment and not really paying attention to it. Whereas when I got better at it, I knew there was a issue there that somebody didn't, her husband didn't tell her or whatever. So I could make a joke and go, hey, I guess he didn't tell you I was coming, huh? And kind of cut up with her. Came away from focus of selling life insurance and really had to break that barrier instead. So I tell some people they're fighting the wrong fight sometimes. If someone's struggling to let you in the door, you gotta gain some trust before you can get in sometimes, versus going right into the sales pitch. So it's just be aware. If someone's not attentive to you, if they're not really paying attention, it's you've gotta pay attention when you're there. If you're not tracking, they'll typically tell you based on their body language and their eye contact, and they're getting nervous, or you show pricing. It's easy to tell if it's too much because their facial expressions change, their nerves change, their eyes change. So just again, being aware. I'm not trying to force anybody to do anything. Don't be aggressive. Don't be rude, obviously. those are basics, but I see a lot of agents do it when they aren't buying right away. Don't worry about being so aggressive on the sales side. Don't be overly salesy. I would say get in there and pay attention. You don't always have to build a rapport up front. I didn't, but I was very professional. I'm more built rapport throughout the appointment than I did up front. I wasn't always necessarily dying to get to the presentation or the pricing necessarily. Don't feel like you need to jump into that immediately if it doesn't make sense. But also don't be afraid to. A lot of people don't really want you there for a long time. So don't feel like you have to sit there and make buddy-buddy with people for 47 minutes before you get into a sales presentation, because you certainly don't have to. And that was a large majority of my appointments. And think of the doctor's office. Imagine if the doctor walks in and he wants to chit chat with you for 45 minutes, ask you about your cabinets and your shoes and your family and all that. It'd be weird, So just don't be fake about it. They want their family taken care of. They expect to do business. That's why you're in the house. They let you over. They booked an appointment with you, however y'all are selling. So don't feel like you got to go through all this build up. Can definitely get to business right away. And if you're professional about it, maintain integrity and explain the process, set the expectations. It's pretty easy to go forward without a ton of rapport. And I've had a ton of appointments where I'd be in the house, make a sale, and gone in 20 minutes. It happened all the time because I got really good at setting expectations, going through this process, asking the right questions, identifying the problem, solving it, moving on, and then, wrapping up the appointment from there. Make sure you're not selling, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, make sure you're solving problems with what you sell. If you're trying to sell based on the rating of the carrier or that you're 8 cents cheaper a month than this product, or if you're selling by just the benefits, and not that the benefits aren't important, but if that's your sale, someone else can easily just walk in, sell better benefits, and get you replaced. So it's make sure you're actually solving a problem, and you're asking good questions to identify what would happen if. Meaning, if someone died, Bob, Mary, whoever dies, and they don't have this policy, how does their life play out? And I always looked at it like in the movies. If I go to the movies with Steph, I almost always fall asleep, like every time. And then the movie will end, and I'll ask a ton of questions. So like, well, what happened? I saw her getting on the train, and this guy was chasing her, but I fell asleep. So what happened? Did he catch her? Did she go here? Did she escape? What happened to her kid? Did he get taken? Did he not get? You know what I mean? I want to know detail. And that's kind of the same way I looked at In-Home. Is I really wanted to see how the movie played out if someone died. So I would ask a lot of curiosity questions, like what would happen here? How would this play out? And I wanted to kind of build in through their words what the worst case what if looked like, because then I could take the policy and solve that, make all that disaster go away. And that was a much more effective way to sell. A lot more of them stayed on the books, and they were buying not only on logic but emotion as well. And people make a lot more decisions when emotion is involved. I'm not really an emotional guy, but I learned how to evoke, I think is the right word, emotion in people. I could get it out of them by asking the right questions. And for me, it was always about the movie. I wanted to see how the movie played out. If Bob died, what was the rest of the movie like without the insurance versus what the rest of the movie would be like with the insurance? And if I could get them to visualize that and articulate that to me, versus what you don't do is just tell them all the reasons why they need life insurance. You need it because of A, B, and C. If you don't have it, you'll be in trouble, and your kids will be this, and da-da-da-da-da. If you're the one selling all the reasons why, it's just not really a solid sale. First time an expense comes up, you're the first thing they get to cancel because they never went through those steps of looking like what that movie played out to be in the negative. Whereas if I do it, something comes up in expense, that's the last thing they're looking to replace is making sure their family gets taken care of. So those are some of the top tips that I would run with. But oops, later.